Hey everyone, so I hope you enjoyed part one of the four-part series of videos I did with Strathmore on some of the essentials of urban sketching. In this second video, we'll be looking at some of the design aspects, such as simplifying a scene, like framing a scene, breaking it down to simple shapes, and so on. And again, I'm really thankful to Strathmore for allowing me to share this with you guys. And I'll be releasing the other videos over the next few weeks, as I said, while I finish up this pen and ink shading course. So of course, I have to say a big thank you to everyone who's been supporting my book, Pen and Ink Drawing a Simple Guide, and the supplementary workbook. And I have to say I really love seeing the wonderful drawings you guys do and share with me on Instagram that were inspired by the book or my tutorials, or in some way inspired by me. It's really cool. And that's one of the reasons why I always try to share them in my stories. And also, for those who haven't heard, the ebook is now available. All right, you can get it now on Amazon for your Kindle e-reader and read it on virtually any platform or device that has the Kindle app. So whether you have an iPad, iPhone, an Android, or Windows tablet or phone, you can read it with no problem once you have the Kindle app. And remember to follow me on Instagram, guys. I'm always posting new drawings and sharing quick tips on there that hopefully brings you some inspiration and helps to keep you motivated. Now, it's important to know that it's not possible, nor is it even necessary, to capture everything or include everything you see in the scene. In fact, I advise against even trying. Instead, it's best to try to rely on the power of suggestion. We observe, then we conceptualize, we transform, we filter, we edit, and so on, and then transfer this visualization to art form. This is essentially the creative process. So it means you take, you make selective choices about what to include, what to leave out, what to imply, or what to suggest, and in the process, experiment with ways on how to do it. And this is perhaps one of the most fun aspects of urban sketching. So here are some simple ways to kind of approach the whole idea of simplifying what you see. Learn to be comfortable with empty or negative space. I can't emphasize this enough. You don't have to fill every space of your paper or of a form or of a building or a tree or whatever it is with stuff. Don't give in to feeling you must fill in every detail you see. It's fun to draw only parts of a building or leave out some leaves of a tree. The viewer will fill in what's missing with their imagination. We are engaged with things that demand of us to participate. And that's essentially what you're doing in a sense. Another tip is to sometimes pay more attention to the outline of objects. It helps to not focus so much on the details or what's going on in the internal form. Sometimes not even shading is necessary. Think of, when you look at things from a distance, sometimes the details are just a blur and all we can make out is just, a silhouette. And it's enough still to convey a sense of what that thing is, whether it's a person, an animal, a building, a tree, or a vehicle, whatever it is. Sometimes we have to learn how to kind of shut off that tendency to want to draw the details, want to fill in the details, and kind of just look at the shape or the superficial form or the outline of the subject that we're looking at. And lastly, take time to practice and experiment with ways to simplify things. As you practice, you'll find that you will have to learn to appreciate the abstract in sketching. Understanding that some things that look like scribbles up close can actually appear as something concrete when you're looking at the whole picture. So with simplification, it isn't what you say so much, but what you convey. Sometimes you'll have to be okay. Initially it may be a little unsettling to know that, oh my God, this does not look like that thing, or this doesn't seem to make sense. But you have to understand that sometimes you have to step back and appreciate the whole and understand that people or the viewer will make sense of it. So don't get too tied up with the little minute details of things or trying to get every little thing exact. Sometimes you leave a shape open. Sometimes you leave a line incomplete. Those little imperfections or things like that can sometimes actually add life and imagination to your drawing. You'd be surprised. Now, looking at a typical scene, with so much information, details, and all that's going on, it's normal to feel a bit overwhelmed. Where do you start? What do you draw first? What matters? What doesn't? You know. Now, a nifty little technique to make things a lot easier for you is to break a scene down to a small number of big and simple 2D shapes. This is so useful because it enables you to simplify any scene or any subject for that matter and makes it so much easier to approach. So look at a scene and start finding the major shapes and elements that stand out. The key is to not get caught up with all the little things, the little details, and focus on the larger, more dominant aspects of the composition. You can start by creating simple thumbnail sketches, and it's okay if you come up with more than one versions of the same scene. This is a natural way of playing around with the elements of your composition. You'll find yourself trying to figure out which shapes are the more dominant ones. Now it's important to try not to have too many shapes because you're attempting to simplify the composition, to find what's most important and make them the basis of the sketch's visual impact. Kind of like writing a summary, so to speak. Now, when breaking down a scene, it's important that you keep the shapes simple. So you want to have few shapes, big shapes, and you want to have simple shapes. Think, triangles, squares, rectangles, circles, ovals, diamonds, pentagons. Essentially simple, flat shapes. So think of the silhouette of animals, of people, trees, plants, buildings, vehicles. All these things can all be reduced to simple geometric shapes. It is also important to know that negative shapes are very much a part of the composition. Their roles in a composition are just as important as the positive shapes. So imagine your view as a window or a flat plane, and you're breaking apart that plane just like you would a jigsaw puzzle. All right, because this enables you to see that all parts of your view, even the empty sky, for example, plays an important role in bringing things together. Now, this is another really fun aspect of urban sketching. There are just so many ways to frame your sketch. What's cool is that each frame can actually affect the way the viewer experiences the scene. So it can determine how their eyes move through the sketch, the type of atmosphere the sketch creates, and even the type of emphasis that's created or where that emphasis is created. So explore a variety of framing possibilities for your sketches. Whether to, for example, to make it a portrait orientation or portrait frame, or a landscape, or square, or circular, or irregular, or a hybrid of different frames. Try to ensure that the frame you choose suits the scene or what you want to capture. More vertical orientations or frames are nice for emphasizing, tall structures like buildings and trees and so on. And especially in cases like a 3-point perspective drawing, when you want the viewer to have a sense of looking up or looking down. Horizontal frames or orientations are also a really popular way to frame your drawings. They're especially nice for panoramic views and 2-page spreads and like multi vanishing point compositions. It's best to frame your sketch based on the scene and how it speaks to you. But at the end of it, just try to, when you choose the frame, use one that actually accentuates the composition in some way. So let's take a look at a few absolutely core concepts or aspects of linear perspective that I think is really important to be aware of. Now, the horizon is so important to be aware of and to be able to identify because in many cases it gives a drawing a sense of grounding and helps to establish a level. Now, it is essentially equivalent to your eye level, the height of your eyes from the ground. And that's how you can easily locate it whenever you look at a scene and it's not immediately apparent. Try to visualize an imaginary horizontal plane that exists at the height of your eyes from the ground and parallel to the ground plane. The horizon enables us to determine if we're looking up at something or if we're looking down. And as a result, it helps us to get our angles right, edges right, and kind of get all our lines consistent. The vanishing point essentially is the point at which the receding parallel lines appear to meet. Now, we must be able to have some idea of where the vanishing point is or are in our scene, right? You must be able to get some sense of where it is. Even if you can't pinpoint the exact location, that's fine. Now, you may have one or two or three vanishing points in a given scene. Sometimes the vanishing point will be found within the scene. Sometimes it can be found outside. Sometimes it can be found towards the left, towards the right. There's no specific place where you will find it, but understand that it can be found in different places and it will help to organize the space that you're looking at. So in most cases, if you find the horizon, it's easier to find the vanishing points and vice versa. Another useful aspect of linear perspective is making divisions. Now, dividing up a space in perspective can be tricky, but using this simple technique, it will make the process a lot easier for you. Now, first, let's look at a rectangle or a square and make an X by connecting the opposite corners. Now, where the lines overlap marks the midpoint of this shape. And this is the center line the center line that we can use to bisect this shape in halves. Now, we could continue to make even smaller divisions of quarters and eighths by following this same principle. Just continue to make X's and you'll continue to bisect whatever that shape is. Now let's draw the shape as if we're seeing it in perspective. Now by making that same X, we're now able to find the midpoint again, but note that now the midpoint is closer to the side that is further away from us. So this is true to the principle of perspective, that things that are closer to us appear larger than things that are further away. So it makes sense that the half that is closer to us appears larger than the half that is further away. Now, this simple method can be used to make divisions or find midpoints of houses, walls, or whatever other architectural feature you may find in a scene. And even for spacing objects like, light poles or trees as they recede in space. Now, these three concepts, I believe, are really fundamental to understanding linear perspective and are useful as guides for at least making your urban sketching, or the spaces in your urban sketching, seem a bit more believable. A thumbnail drawing is just a small rough sketch done as a quick study. It is usually in preparation for final drawing. Now, usually artists use thumbnails to explore and work out compositional issues. They allow you to practice, to plan, to preview ideas, and it's worth it to take the time to complete a few before really starting your final drawing. I can't emphasize how invaluable these little things can be. They only take a few seconds. They don't really need to be complex or detailed. The simpler the better. So one thumbnail, may focus on composition and design aspects, such as, where will you place your focal point? How will you frame the scene? What will be the orientation you'll use? Will it be landscape? Will it be portrait? And so on. You get to work out composition and design issues way in advance of actually starting your actual drawing. You could also use thumbnails to try out different versions of the same scene, before actually committing or settling on any given one. Many artists do this because at times you can look at a scene and see 3, 4, 5 drawings. And sometimes you just want to get a taste of what that drawing may feel like before you actually commit to it. Thumbnails can also focus on the basic elements. So for example, you can have one that focuses on mapping out the value pattern or the light and shadow, or just the overall placement and layout of values in your drawing. Another could focus on shapes, or details or textures or whatever other basic element, you can actually isolate individual aspects of a drawing and focus your thumbnail on any given one. Okay, everyone, so if you like my videos, remember to give this video a thumbs up and also to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you won't miss any new uploads. All right, so as usual, thanks so much for watching. Keep practicing, and I'll see you next video.